Hey guys, and welcome to Inside the Law. I'm your host, Philip Holloway. This is a special shortened version of Inside the Law. This is not a live stream because I wanted to take just a few minutes to come in here and talk with you about the First Amendment. Of course, we are all watching, some of us with horror, what we're seeing on our television screens with respect to what is often billed as peaceful protests that are currently occurring across colleges and universities across the United States today. Now, one thing that you will know and you need to always understand is that here inside the law, we support without qualification the First Amendment. Now, in that context, it's very important that we understand what the First Amendment actually is. So let's take a look at it. The First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or, and here's the important part, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So the free market of ideas, so to speak, is important that in that free market, we hear all voices. If you've watched this channel, there's an episode that we did specifically on censorship. I don't believe in government censorship. I believe in the free exchange of all ideas, whether it's something that I agree with or I don't agree with. That's the way our founders intended the free exercise of free speech to occur. The founders intended that everybody's voice could be heard and nobody could be silenced by the government. And so the idea being that the consumer of ideas, the people who are perhaps listening or taking in what is being said, can pick and choose from amongst various viewpoints and decide for themselves what position is reasonable and what position may align with their own individual values. Now, what we're seeing taking place, however, is not always truly First Amendment activity. Now, what it is sometimes it's violence, it's extremism, and it is things that are said to be First Amendment activity that are couched in First Amendment clothing, but truly are not First Amendment protected activity. And by the way, the First Amendment refers also to the right of the people to assemble, but it must be peaceable. So when we're talking about redress of grievances, petitioning the government for redress of grievances, you can stand on the street corner, or you can stand up on the courthouse steps, or you can go into the town square, or in front of the university, or on the subway platform, and you can let the world know what exactly you want the government to do to change something. You can write letters to your congressman. You can do lots of things that are considered petitioning the government for redress of grievances. In fact, you can even do this. This is out of Seattle today for the MayDay demands from some up there. They're saying, look, they want safe and stable housing for all migrants. They want the Palestinian trade union demands, including to stop building and transporting weapons to the entity known as Israel and disaffiliate with them with their unions. No repealing or rolling back minimum wage for gig workers. And the list goes on. And it even refers to comprehensive migration reform for all, and they want it now. And they want unemployment insurance for all undocumented folks. And of course, that's an example of petitioning the government for redress of grievances. I happen to think that a lot of that is nonsense, but that's just my opinion. They're entitled to their opinion, and they're entitled to voice their opinion. They're entitled to make graphics like that and put it all over the internet. And we're all entitled to look at it and to decide whether or not it fits with what we think makes sense, and then whether it comports with our worldview and perhaps our own sense of morality. So it's a perfect example of something that I personally don't agree with, but I support their right to make those what I think are pretty silly and ridiculous demands. But other people don't think they're silly and ridiculous. And that's what the First Amendment is all about. Now, what is the First Amendment not about? It's not about violence. It's not about hurting other people. It's not about taking over private spaces, property that doesn't belong to you. Once once a First Amendment gathering begins to take over somebody else's property or to affect the rights of other people to use their property or to have access to public property, it's no longer peaceful. And of course, once the gathering um, takes the form of assaulting police officers or trying to use force to break into government buildings. Once it gets to that point, we are no longer peaceably assembling. And this is no longer First Amendment protected activity. So as you're taking in the news of the day and as you're watching all of these remarkable events take place, watch for people who say, "Oh, we are just out here peacefully protesting." Well, sometimes people don't understand exactly what the First Amendment means. And so now that you've seen this video, hopefully you have some idea of what it really, really does mean. You don't have to be punching somebody in the face to move outside the protected sphere of First Amendment activity. You can simply be blocking access to a public space where somebody else has a right to be there. Because remember, you can't expect your rights to trample on the rights of other people. Because when that happens, you are no longer inside the First Amendment. You are no longer engaging in any activity that's covered by the First Amendment. And if you break the law, you're subject to being arrested. And by the way, just because you see police using force doesn't mean the police are using brutality. Oftentimes, police have to use some degree of force to arrest people who don't want to be arrested. They will resist arrest. Maybe they're not punching the officer, but maybe they're simply not putting their hands behind their back, or they're doing something else to obstruct and resist what's otherwise a lawful arrest. And so the more people resist, the more force police have to use. And if it's not something that you're accustomed to seeing every day, then it can catch you off guard. And so just because you see police using force, don't confuse that with excessive force or even violence. That is the police doing their job. Now, if the police do use excessive force, then that's another thing that we can talk about, and we will. We're going to do something exactly on what is and what is not excessive and unlawful police use of force. But most of the things that you're seeing right now across the internet, they are not in the category of unreasonable or excessive police use of force. You're seeing a lot of propaganda. So I want you to understand that you need to educate yourselves and understand what the First Amendment is and is not. And then you can help better understand what you're seeing in the news. And remember, if it's violent, it is no longer inside the sphere of protected First Amendment activity. And we'll see you next time here inside the law.